This country is famous for its wealth of heritage, from the buildings that surround us to its many extraordinary objects and its astonishing engineering. Much of it we already know and love. But this country is a treasure trove, full of hidden heritage, and it's all waiting to be discovered.
We've been scouring the length and the breadth of the nation, looking for secret treasures and hidden places that unlock our rich and ever surprising history. And today we travel to Northumberland to reveal the surprising and very grand setting that tells the story of the birth of household electricity.
This room was the very first room in the world to be lit by Joseph Swan's newly invented filament light bulb.
Charlie Luxton spends the night in one of Victorian Britain's most notorious prisons.
It's nearly midnight and I'm in a cold cell.
Claire Balding travels to Yorkshire in search of a relic that was lost 5 centuries ago.
Local legend has it that at least one piece of Jervaulx treasure escaped the grasping hands of Henry VIII.
And guest reporter Charlie Borman sets sail from Portsmouth to find a unique piece of British naval history that's been at the bottom of the ocean for 100 years.
Look, and you can see the tower on the top and everything, just below us, literally.
This is a journey to the very heart of Britain's hidden heritage. Situated right in the middle of a 1,000-acre forest that is in itself surrounded by the wild moors of one of Britain's most remotest regions, I think we can confidently say today's host location is one of Britain's most hidden heritage secrets and one of the most stunning. Welcome to the Cragside estate.
If you drive an hour north of Newcastle, heading towards the wild and windy Northumberland moors, you get some idea of the remoteness of Cragside House. It began life almost 150 years ago as a simple 2-storey country residence, the modest retreat of the now almost forgotten industrialist, scientist and inventor Sir William Armstrong. In 1863, he bought some land on this impossibly steep-sided valley, had it cleared and built himself the house of his dreams, perched on a ledge of rock overlooking the river running below.
The first thing that really hits you about Cragside is the magnitude of the place. It is absolutely vast, and it's obviously been built by a man who didn't worry about the building costs or building regulations, or even the impractical complications of constructing a house on the side of a cliff in the middle of nowhere. It is a magnificent piece of landscaping, a superb piece of engineering, and it's all been made possible by the vision of one brilliant man.
William Armstrong was an extremely influential figure of the Victorian industrial age. But unlike some of the more famous engineers and businessmen of the time, like Brunel and Thomas Telford, Armstrong's name isn't as widely known today. But as we will find out, his inventions have profoundly influenced the way we lead our lives, because many of the mod cons we now take for granted in our homes began their lives right here at Cragside.
So who exactly was William Armstrong?
He was the son of a corn merchant born in 1810 in Newcastle, a Geordie.
Yeah.
His main passion was engineering and achieved so much from hydraulics, chemicals, electricity, shipbuilding. To the time of his death in 1900, there was over 30,000 workers at the Elswick Works alone.
During the 1870s, when Armstrong's business empire was at its peak, his companies were building hydraulic cranes for dockyards, warships and armaments for governments around the world. And Cragside played its part in Armstrong's success. Used to entertain potential clients, he filled the house with cutting-edge technology, hoping to impress his guests and seal the deals.
They had heating, they had hot and cold running water.
They had all the mod cons, basically, when you look around this house.
Exactly, the house is full of them. You know, it had a lift, mainly put in for the benefit of the staff, to take coal up, you know, to the various floors. Telephone system on the estate, fire alarm system. The owl suite, the royal suite, you know, it had hot and cold running water.
This is incredible. I mean, this is so ahead of its time, isn't it?
Was.
It really is.
It is.
In 1977, the house was passed to the Treasury in part settlement of death duties from the Armstrong family. It was then transferred to the National Trust, who in 1979 opened Cragside up to the public, and they now look after the day-to-day running of the place.
Let's face it, Cragside is in a remote location, but nevertheless it's open to the public, so it's got to be run in a manner befitting such a grand location. Doors open at 1 p.m. every single day, but there's an awful lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, prepping, and that's a big task on such a large estate like this. There's only 4 staff in the house. There's 5 gardeners, there's a forester, but there's also a team of dedicated, enthusiastic volunteers. Now, without them, this place wouldn't be open to the public, and they're having a staff meeting right now. So let's be nosy and have an earwig. Hi everyone, hello. Sorry if I'm just being a bit nosy. I know you're going to open the house any minute now. Have you learned an awful lot about William Armstrong and what he set out to do?
Yeah, yes.
I think he was exceptional with the way his servants benefited from his inventions.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
He never gets the appreciation that he should get.
Championing the cause. Yes. Well, good on you. Look, I won't keep you because I know you got work to do. And you're going to have a bit of lunch before it's 1 o'clock. You haven't got long, have you?
While the volunteers work out who's doing what, I have the opportunity to take a good look around the house myself. Every room seems to be chock full of surprises, but not all of them feature on the guided tour, like one rather unique collection that particularly grabbed my attention.
Do you know what? This is the most extensive collection of moulds I have come across in my entire life. We've got jelly moulds, biscuit moulds, butter moulds, cake moulds, you name it. Lord Armstrong has got it right here.
Walking around the house, you really do appreciate the extent to which Cragside has been preserved.
You know, in its heyday, there were around 100 servants here, and I'm actually climbing the ladies' quarter now, where they lived. The higher up you got, the lower down the pecking order you were. So on the top floor were the scullery maids. And of course, over the other side of the building were the men. They kept them apart. Coming up the last flight of stairs now, and you can see how high we are out there. We're above the rooftops.
It's astonishing to think it was the servants of Cragside that were treated to some of the best views of the estate.
Wow, what a view! Isn't that incredible? And, listen, the sound of water.
Water was the driving force behind the triumph of Cragside, and later I'm going to learn how water played a powerful part in Armstrong's inventions.
The story of Cragside, William Armstrong and all the staff that lived and worked here are one of many success stories throughout Britain during the 19th century. But there's another side to our Victorian history that's a little bit murkier. Charlie Luxton went to Lincolnshire to uncover some rather dark and disturbing parts of our hidden heritage.
Deep in the heart of this ancient town lies an important part of our heritage that history has tried to forget. Enclosed behind the tall, imposing walls of Lincoln's Norman Castle stands a building that was shut down over 100 years ago, and it's been closed to the public ever since.
It's a sinister remnant of a discredited, barbaric system, but an important reminder of how the Victorians treated criminals. I've come to Lincoln Castle Prison, which is about to have its first inmate for 140 years. Me.
I've been given special permission to spend the night here to try and get some sense of what life must have been like for the inmates it was designed to hold. The Victorians built this jail, an extension of an earlier one, in 1847. They were enthusiastic jailers. This prison was one of over 90 built or extended between the 1840s and 1870s. But Lincoln Castle was more than just another jail. It heralded a whole new approach to the prison system.
This is so special because it was specifically built for a system that at the time they thought was going to reform all prisons, but what actually turned out after a couple of years to be something quite evil called the separate system or the Pentonville system.
So how did that work?
It started off in America with Quakers, Benjamin Rush. They decided that punishment wasn't working, so let's try something different. Let's try reforming. And the way you can reform is by religion, silence, and solitude. And the way they would enforce the fact that you would not meet or see anybody else was you had a hood. A hood with slits for eyes and a little peak, which you would put onto your head before you left your cell. So if you can imagine 2 years of virtually not talking to anybody, it sent a lot of people mad.
This whole system was based on control and fear. Wearing this rough cloth hood is uncomfortable, disorientating, and very scary. And as one of the few times you got to take it off was to watch a prison chaplain in full-on fire and brimstone mode, it's no wonder prisoners went mad. I want my time here to give me as good an insight into the lives of the prisoners as possible, so I need to know more about who these men actually were.
Well, there's lots of people that are held here. They range from people convicted of stealing a scarf, maybe, and they would generally be held here for sort of 3 months at a time. And then we have the very serious cases which can result in execution.
The separate system was undoubtedly cruel, but by implementing it, the Victorians were trying, however badly, to improve the previous, even worse prison system. And it's the story of one Anderson Irving, a young convict that was held here in the 1700s, that really highlights the poor conditions that existed prior to the separate system.
He was arrested for stealing a silver cup, and then he was brought to Lincoln for his trial. After his conviction, he was sentenced to transportation to the colonies. So he was sent out to Australia, where he proved himself an able surgeon. So whilst we don't have records of him in books, we do actually have something slightly better, which is his name carved into one of the stones in the cell that he was held.
Irving's story is extraordinary. Transported to the other side of the world for stealing a cup seems incredibly harsh. But worse is where he appears to have been kept while an inmate here, because deep beneath the Victorian building lies another hidden prison.
So Bob, how many people, come down here to the basement?
Not many. The only people come down are when it needs maintenance or we need to look at things if anything's happened.
Right in there, is it?
Yep.
Okay. It's pretty narrow, isn't it?
It is.
So this would have been a transportation cell?
Yes, yes.
You're joking. I mean, look. You can't keep people in. There's no lights. There's no windows. This is ridiculous. I mean, so this would have been packed full of people about to go off to Australia to be on their way to transportation.
Yeah.
So our Dr. Irvine, he'd be down here somewhere, would he?
He will be, yes.
Where is he? Do you know where his name is?
Yes, if you'd like to follow me.
Okay. What, through there?
Yep.
And that's really old stone, that, isn't it?
As we come up to this entrance here...
Well, I'm not getting through there.
Well, I can't. And I'm bigger than you. But as we crouch down, you can actually see the name.
Irving, look at that. So, 84.
It is, yes.
So that's 1784?
1784.
I mean, you can see why he ended up being a surgeon. He's got a very good hand.
Oh, aye.
That is absolutely... It's almost incredible that, in this sort of dehumanising system, he just didn't want to get forgotten, did he?
No, he didn't.
Being held here must have been a living hell. The sounds, the smells, The fear must have been overwhelming. I've learnt a lot today, but now it's time for one final insight. It's time for the first inmate for over 100 years to check in for the night.
I'm just looking through the governor's journal here from 1852, and there's years of it, and what it really makes you realise is the crushing mundanity of life here, you know, a system designed to break the spirit. And it's funny because when we were talking about coming and spending a night here, it seemed like a really good idea on the phone, but now I'm sat here, it's nearly midnight, and I'm in a cold cell that is really not very comfortable. And I know that when I wake up in the morning, lying here, I'm going to look up at that roof, and the first thing I'm going to see is going to be the first thing that thousands of inmates saw over decades.
The separate system was a brief but bizarre moment in Victorian Britain. It lasted for less than 2 years. Lincoln Castle Prison itself was closed in 1887. Ironically, it became a victim of the Victorians' obsession with locking people up. It quite simply ran out of space. And when a newer and larger prison was built nearby, this place became an archive store for the county council.
This is dawn, and I can't say that I've had a hugely comfortable night, but I think it's been important that I came and spent some time here and spent the night, because so often we have a tendency to celebrate the great and glorious episodes in our history and brush under the carpet the darker and more sinister sides, and that is certainly what Lincoln Castle Prison is. And that's exactly what makes it such an important part of our hidden heritage.
Back in Northumberland, my tour of Cragside has taken me outside onto the 1,700-acre estate.
Lord Armstrong came to this valley as a young boy because he was a keen angler. He wanted to fish the water. And it's water that's become the theme that's linked this house with many of his experiments that he's carried out within it. And it's highly likely that he chose this area to build his house, not because of its outstanding natural beauty, but because of its potential for hydroelectric power.
Armstrong was fascinated by the potential for harnessing the power of water. And on the top of the crag, way above the house, Armstrong diverted 2 rivers and created a series of 5 stunning lakes. It's only out in the middle of one of these lakes that the monumental scale of Armstrong's vision becomes apparent. He was way ahead of his time, realising the potential water provided for renewable energy.
This wasn't here before. He built all of this high above his house, which created a vast head of water with so much pressure it could be collected through a series of pipes that would drive all of his experiments.
At a time when the world's manufacturing industries were eating up coal and gas, Armstrong saw fossil fuels as expensive and wasteful, even predicting that coal would run out within 200 years. But how, in 1878, did he turn water into electricity? Cragside's resident engineer Robin Wright knows all about Armstrong's technical wonders and his visionary genius.
This is great, isn't it? The moors.
It's a lovely spot, yes. Yeah, right out on the moor he built a dam. The water supply runs into a canal for perhaps about a quarter of a mile, and then into this 2-foot diameter clear pipe, which eventually runs down through onto the estate.
I'm starting to understand the scale of what went on here.
By the time the water reached the estate below, it had dropped 140 feet, building up enough pressure to turn a high-tech water wheel or turbine. Robin is going to demonstrate how, for the first time ever, Armstrong turned water pressure into electricity.
Well, I've got the hose pipe, you've got the dynamo in your pocket. Let's have a look at that. What is that exactly? A light bulb in there?
Yes, we've got a small LED light bulb with a little gearbox inside, which is driving this little dynamo, which is coils of wire going round
a magnet.
A magnet, yeah, and
Okay,
providing
copper
the
wire.
electricity. Copper wire, yeah.
Right. Okay. So there's a little nut on there, so you can put that in.
Yeah.
In there.
We'll see if this works and see what happens. We'll try not to get too wet.
Okay. Right. Let's try it, shall we? Here's water from the reservoir. Here we go.
Yes, we've got a bit of light there.
Armstrong's real genius was to combine the ancient technology of the water wheel with the very recent inventions of his friends and fellow inventors. Werner Siemens' electro-dynamo machine, first demonstrated just 10 years before, and the incandescent light bulbs of fellow northeasterner Joseph Swan.
Now, when you think about hydroelectric power stations, you're probably imagining huge, great big dams somewhere or massive concrete buildings, not some small, unassuming little building in the middle of the woods here at Cragside. Well, look, this is it. This little cottage is the powerhouse.
And this pipe is Journey's End for the water, now running at £150 per square inch. It runs under the floor and then hits the turbine.
The wheel is covered, it's cased in metal to stop the water from splashing everywhere, but it drives this shaft. You've got your two huge, great big magnets, your coil of copper. That's spinning around at 1,300 revs per minute. Here are the terminals that you can draw the power supply from, the positive and the negative. So this is really what feeds the house up there, the world's first hydroelectric dynamo for domestic use. Our reporters have been touring the British Isles in search of the overlooked, and in her quest for hidden heritage, Claire Balding has been to one of the most beautiful parts of the country to find a long-forgotten ruin that's been neglected for centuries.
Now everyone knows all about the Yorkshire Dales. Big, vast, beautiful landscape, great for walking, for cycling, for riding. But the thing about Yorkshire is the deeper you dig, the more you find. And for history buffs, this place is a treasure trove. There were more battles fought in Yorkshire than any other county in the country. And if you go off the beaten path, and I mean really off it, you will find a place like this. Not just one of Yorkshire's, but one of Britain's hidden gems. Buried in the depths of Uredale, the ruins of Jervaulx Abbey tell the story of a vibrant monastic community and of its eventual destruction by one of Britain's most infamous kings. And yet, this important historical site is very much off the tourist trail. The nearby abbeys of Byland and Rievaulx are much better known than Jervaulx, and this one feels a bit like going into somebody's private garden, and it is privately owned. That doesn't mean it's not open to the public, it is all year round, but you'll never find a massive crowd here because it's so hard to find, and I haven't been here before, but there it is. That is magical. The monastery at Jervaulx was founded in 1156. During the following 400 years, not only did the abbey develop into an important centre of religious devotion, but the Cistercian monks also established a thriving trading community, farming the land, breeding horses, and producing Wensleydale cheese. So, Glyn, what would life have been like here in the 12th century?
Well, there are 60 or 70 monks, and they're supported by perhaps 3 times as many lay brothers. It's a self-supporting organisation. It has a huge estate. It feeds itself. It's self-sufficient. Everything they eat, drink, and wear is made here.
But in 1534, the fortunes of the abbey changed dramatically. Henry VIII passed the Act of Supremacy, making himself head of the Church of England, and ultimately bringing about the dissolution of many religious houses, including Jervaulx. Within 4 years, the abbey had been demolished. Its land became the property of the Crown, and much of its treasure seized, sold, or smashed. Before its destruction, Jervaulx and its ecclesiastical treasures were valued at the equivalent of nearly £1.5 million in today's money. Afterwards, all that remained were the building's crumbling walls and broken pillars. And here it stood for nearly 500 years, with the Yorkshire weather and Mother Nature taking on what the wreckers left behind. Until, that is, the current owners acquired it as part of a farm in the 1970s and have been lovingly caring for it ever since. I really do love the feel of this place. I love the fact that you can climb all over it, that nowhere's out of bounds, that it's deliberately rough around the edges. But it is very hard to imagine the full scale, the grandeur, the colour of it in its heyday. All of that seems to have been lost. Or has it been? Because local legend has it that at least one piece of Jervaulx treasure escaped the grasping hands of Henry VIII. It's believed that one of the churches in the area surrounding Jervaulx contains an artefact from the Abbey, so I'm off to St Andrew's Church in Aysgarth. Legend has it that this ornately carved, brightly coloured relic was salvaged from the Abbey during its destruction. It's said that 20 men heaved this huge oak screen the 10 miles from Jervaulx to the church. But is the story true? Well, it's a magnificent piece of woodwork and carpentry, but how do we know whether this came from Jervaulx?
Well, there are a couple of ways of actually working it out. First of all, just looking at the screen itself, it has right in the middle, up the top here, the initials either HM or HW. And we know that they occur on another piece of furniture from Jervaulx, from a stall end. That's a pretty good way of guessing.
But Glyn's come to Aysgarth today, armed with measurements taken from the Abbey. As all Cistercian abbeys were built to a similar design, he's pretty certain that he knows where the screen would once have stood, as its stone plinth is still in place at Jervaulx. He has a hunch that, if proven correct, could finally solve the origin of this mysterious artefact.
The gap in the plinth at Jervaulx is 70 inches. When we measure it here, I think we'll find that it's pretty close to 70 inches.
OK.
And in fact, it's 73 inches exactly.
The width of the door is 3 inches wider than the gap at the Abbey, allowing for the stone plinth to have a 1.5-inch step on each side of the door. That's a very good match.
The door is the one thing you can't really alter. We can actually fit this door to the existing foundations at Jervaulx. This has to come from a monastic church somewhere, and Jervaulx is the nearest.
Hundreds of thousands of tourists come to the villages around this part of Yorkshire through the summer holidays, but hardly any of them will have discovered Jervaulx Abbey, and even fewer will know about the painted screen here in this church. But it all goes to show, as I said earlier, the deeper you dig, the more you will discover about Britain's hidden heritage.
At Cragside, I'm continuing my quest to discover more about Lord Armstrong's inventions. The place is filled with gadgets that we nowadays take for granted. Electric bells, an in-house telephone system, and a lift. But in the 19th century, these things were revolutionary.
Now, we've seen how William Armstrong created his own electricity before it was in common use. But what did he use it for in the house? Well, I can tell you, because I'm standing here. This room was the very first room in the world to be lit by Joseph Swan's newly invented filament light bulb. What an amazing piece of history.
Sir Joseph Swan was a physicist and chemist who, like Armstrong, came from the northeast of England. In 1878, Swan invented the incandescent light bulb. It wasn't long before news of the breakthrough reached Armstrong, and he had Swan install this technology at Cragside.
And here is one of the original lamp bases. There are 4 of them all together in the room. The lamp base itself is made of copper, but it's been beautifully decorated with enamel. Lovely colours, still vibrant. It's known as cloisonné work, but it's the copper that helps conduct the current. This worked by virtue of sitting in its own tray of mercury, which also conducted the current, but there was no such thing as a light switch. You couldn't turn it on or off. It was constantly on. No one had thought about this because it was in its infancy stage. So in order to turn it off, you had to take it out of its bed of mercury, like that, and then put it back in to turn it on. But I have to say, back then, people watching this would be in awe of it. They would be totally amazed. It would be like seeing a magic show. This whole room just perfectly lit. And it's no wonder this house was once described as the palace of the modern magician.
In fact, Armstrong harnessed water power as a means of driving numerous other imaginative gadgets dotted throughout the house.
What a lovely, big, airy kitchen. Just look at the size of this. So, is this the first dishwasher in the world?
Well, it's a very early form of dishwasher.
How does it work?
It's just pressure of water and you closed the doors so it was all contained, and you had these jets of water hitting the dishes.
He went to a lot of expense then to get the water from the lakes or the reservoirs to this house.
He did indeed, and that's what makes the whole house work, though, the power of water.
Cragside's reputation spread rapidly throughout Victorian Britain. News of Armstrong's household innovations eventually reached the future king, who invited himself around. Later, I'll find out more about the royal visit to Cragside.
Each week on Britain's Hidden Heritage, we're sending out a famous face to talk about their own heritage passion. And today, Charlie Borman sets off to find out about a submarine that's been on the seabed for the last 100 years.
I've journeyed to the south coast of England, to the historic naval town of Gosport. I've come here to learn about the discovery of a shipwreck, a crucial piece of maritime heritage that casts new light on the early beginnings of the Royal Navy submarine service.
And that's where my search is going to take me today, back to the very beginning of the 20th century and the very first all-British Navy submarine. The only problem is that it's not here in dry dock. It's out there under the sea where it's been lying in obscurity for about 100 years.
As someone who is nuts about technology, this journey of discovery is an incredible opportunity for me. My guide is Martin Davis, who is in charge of monitoring and protecting the site. We're motoring to a point just off the coast of Brecklesham Bay, where 10 meters below the surface lies the boat's remains. It's a thrilling ride out. As we close in on the wreck, I'm getting even more eager to find out what it was they uncovered.
It's so exciting.
As we get nearer, Martin uses his onboard sonar to help us pinpoint the wreck.
So we'll be able to sit on here in a few minutes?
We certainly will, if we just go very slowly now.
Okay.
Carefully go round it. We should just see the wreck rise from the seabed.
Yeah. Okay.
We get a good view of it. There she comes.
Oh, there she comes. Oh, yeah.
There's a little hint of it there.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. There it is. And it's just sitting there on the bed of the sea, just below us, literally.
What I'm seeing today is exactly what a fisherman saw in 1987, when the mysterious structure showed up on his sonar. He didn't know it at the time, but what the fisherman was looking at was the tower of a submarine.
Wow, what an experience to come across it, to be the first to see it.
It was, however, obvious to him he'd stumbled across a large wreck, but it took a local dive team to establish just what had been unearthed.
We come out the following day to see what the obstruction was, not knowing what it was.
Yeah.
Zero-vis dive, couldn't see hardly anything at all. Bumped into what turned out to be a compass, just there on the bottom.
The discovery of a compass was a tantalizing find. But visibility in British waters can be poor. And the team had to make numerous trips before they could work out what had been found.
Come back the following week, the viz had gone from 0 to 3 metres. We realised it was a very early type submarine.
The team had a hunch the submarine dated back to the very beginnings of the Royal Navy submarine service. By the start of the 20th century, countries like France, Japan, and the US had begun to realize the potential submarines had for military use, and the British were keen not to be left behind. So, in 1900, under a veil of secrecy, Vickers, Sons and Maxim at the Borough-in-Furness shipyard set about developing their very own submarine, codename the A1. And incredibly, it's this very submarine Gordon and the divers had discovered.
Been diving quite a few years, you know, finding absolutely nothing really.
Yeah.
And then coming across this, yeah, absolutely amazing.
Astonishingly, the A1 had been lying on the seabed for 100 years, half buried in a sandbank just outside the mouth of the busy Chichester Harbour, 5 miles from where she was reported to have sunk. The experimental submarine, seen here on the day of her maiden voyage, proved to have a remarkable performance when put through her paces. With her crew of 11, the A1 had a top speed of 8 knots, was over 30 meters long, could travel 25 miles underwater, was armed with a single firing torpedo tube, and one of the first practical modern periscopes. Conditions may have been cramped and basic for the sailors, but at the time she was still one of the most advanced submarines anywhere in the world. Since her discovery, the A1 has been the subject of numerous archaeological dives, and the vessel has given up some extraordinary finds.
Oh my God, they're unbelievably in perfect condition.
Yeah, perfect.
Aren't they?
Condition. Yeah,
God, they're beautiful.
Out of all the binoculars that have been found by not only myself but Gordon and the others, you know, over the years, many pairs of binoculars, but the first that have actually been restored back to working condition, they're incredible.
But they do work, don't they? You can see.
Yeah. The quality of the brass is fantastic.
God, that is incredible. Ross of London, they're from.
Yeah.
They were hanging in their case down in the conning tower. When I reached in to just lift them out on the strap came off the case, and they tumbled back down into the submarine.
Oh my gosh, so they were...
They laid inside on the floor for about 2 years.
A wealth of remarkably well-preserved artifacts have been salvaged from the A1 and restored back to their former glory. However, there is still one piece of the A1 story that is missing. How she ended up in her final resting place and what happened to the crew. To uncover the truth, my search has brought me to the vault of the Royal Navy Submarine Museum, where thousands of blueprints, photographs, and declassified military documents are held, and that stretch right back to the very beginnings of the submarine service.
The thought of being, you know, in a metal contraption under the sea, I mean, it took a lot of nerve, didn't it?
Yeah, I say to people that it's almost like to us going up in the space shuttle, but I suppose they just sort of took it, it's everyday part of life for these guys, it's just the norm.
But in March 1904, events took a tragic turn for the A1 and her pioneering crew. The submarine, captained by Lieutenant Mansberg, sailed to the Solent, ready to take part in the first full Royal Navy training exercise to involve a submarine.
Mansberg, the captain, was attacking a surface vessel. It was the last day of the manoeuvres, and he was keen to press home his attack. A fast liner of the Berwick Castle comes steaming through the exercise areas.
A civilian?
Yes, civilian liner. She doesn't see the periscope. The captain of the submarine is so intent on his attack that he doesn't see the liner bearing down on his submarine. So there's a collision, and the submarine immediately fills with water because there's no partitions. And as soon as the damage occurred, the crew would have been stunned, unable to do anything, and all 11 of the crew were killed.
The brave men that lost their lives in the A1 tragedy became the first fatal casualties of the Royal Navy submarine service.
These are the names of the crew, the people who actually were killed in the accident.
Oh, that's kind of sad to see that, really.
Mm.
Oh, those lads, they were so young as well, weren't they?
The sinking of HMS A1 certainly serves as a stark reminder of the risks taken by these heroic pioneers. The damaged A1 was repaired and re-entered into service, but in 1911 she sank again, this time during an unmanned exercise. But now it would be nearly another 80 years before she was ever seen again. However, it has left behind a legacy. It's because of the A1 that all submarines were subsequently fitted with double-hatch conning towers, increasing the chances of survival for crews. In fact, many of the safety features and designs of modern submarines can all be traced back to this iconic boat and its heroic crew. But what does the future hold?
The A1 submarine is part of our heritage, whether it's out there in the bottom of the ocean or in a museum. But for me, it's a little bit too hidden. The people who built the A1 were ingenious, brave, and they were pioneering. And the fruits of their labor shouldn't be allowed to rot away at the bottom of the sea.
With my visit to Cragside Estate nearly over, there's just one final surprise left in store.
This house was so advanced for its time, it became so well known amongst the upper echelons of society that it was only a matter of time before it had a visit from the Prince of Wales, later to become King Edward VII, a man known for his passion of all things modern. And by all accounts, he was absolutely fascinated to visit the palace of the modern magician. And he gave William Armstrong enough notice of his impending visit. Enough time, in fact, for Armstrong to extend Cragside once again. Ooh, this is nice, isn't it? It's cosy, yet it's not over the top.
It is. This is where the royal family stayed when they visited in 1884.
How many nights did they stay for?
They stayed for 3 nights in these set of suites in 3 rooms. They came because these suites had hot and cold running water, were centrally heated, were way ahead of their time from what they were used to at Buckingham Palace, so it was a novelty for them.
The mod cons.
It did.
They must have been impressed, mustn't they?
But for once, it wasn't Armstrong's futuristic technologies that are the biggest talking points of the royal apartments. Perhaps the most impressive feature is to be found in the new drawing room, and it's this colossal chimney piece.
You get into this room and all of a sudden it smacks of classical Renaissance because of that.
It does, but you have to remember that this room was the wow factor for the royal visit that Lord Armstrong had.
Yeah, but you know what? It dominates the room. Personally, I think it commands the room too much. You walk in here and you see this wonderful cove ceiling, you know, with this heavy reliefed plasterwork, and then you see this curved fan light, which is absolutely stunning. And then your eyes drop down, you go, wow. I mean, is that Italian? It's all marble. It's Renaissance in style.
It's all marble. It's 10 tons of marble.
10 tons
Italian
of marble.
It was shipped in pieces to London, carved in London, and then came up in pieces by boat to a local port. Came by horse and cart and was put together here.
Wow.
All to impress the royal visitors.
Yeah. You could stand 30-odd people in that fireplace.
You could.
Of course, it's ironic that this decorative fireplace could be the focus of a home that was such a talking point for its revolutionary central heating system. But it does serve to remind us that Cragside was more than just a laboratory for Armstrong to try out his numerous innovations. It was the home of a man with an appreciation for beautiful form as well as technological function. Armstrong died in 1900 at the age of 90. He had no children, and his wealth and estate passed to his great-nephew. The technological innovations that Cragside represented for so many years at last had come to an end.
What I've discovered today is the extraordinary legacy of one of Britain's most underrated inventors. William Armstrong truly was a visionary, seeing water as opposed to gas or coal as a clean source of power and energy, and always trying to lighten the load for the workmen with his inventions. That's why it's so fitting that Cragside should be preserved and restored for future generations to appreciate. But more than anything, it should stand as a lasting monument to the man who created it, Lord William Armstrong.